All right, hello everyone. I'm here with Rav today. This is a part of our ongoing interview series where we're interviewing speakers of the upcoming Evolutionary Astrology Conference. It will be happening October 6th through 8th. So we're going to talk with Rav a little bit, get to know her, what she is thinking about these days, her work with EA, how she got started, and what her topic is all about. So welcome, Rav.
Hi, Ari.
So the question that I want to start with
Mm.
right now on your own soul journey, what are you thinking about? What learning related to the EA teachings is just like exciting and interesting for you? Like what's alive in your soul?
Interesting question. To be honest, the whole EA paradigm is amazing in itself in terms of what it teaches you. But this point in my life, what I'm really divulging into quite deeply is the whole concept of emotions. It's, the emotional reality that I've created in my life. And the key word being I've created in my life. And kind of looking at my life journey from a point from an objective lens. And it's interesting because it is post my Uranus opposition, and we spoke about this, just before recording. And it's looking at life from a perspective of the keyword that's coming up. I'm trying to look at it as more in terms of joy and fun. We're here to evolve, we're growing, we're souls having a human experience. But I'm personally divulging deeper into what is joyful for me and what do I want to do with that joy in terms of the work that I'm doing. This platform, EA, what do I want to take forward in terms of guiding others and providing inspiration, if I'm honest.
Hmm.
And that very much relates to my own kind of natal moon being in Capricorn, but being in the fifth house,
Fifth
which is
house.
naturally Leo. So trying to be more fun, expressive, and to have the light shining on me, that's probably quite key for me at this point.
Beautiful. So I've heard this thought before that I think about this a lot. The deeper we feel something, the more insight we get. And I
Mhm,
think about the teaching of, evolution happens through the emotional body and how real
mhm.
that is. So yeah, you can't repress your emotion. Everything has to be met. And I'm just interested to hearing your thoughts and reflections on this since you've been really delving in this topic. This interplay between insight and actually experiencing our own emotions.
Yeah, and this is the topic and subject I will be getting further into in the conference, being, the subject I've chosen is how we have to evolve through the emotional body. Actually, the word is we must evolve through the emotional body if we are to evolve. And it's kind of taking that, it's the outer experience, which we feel, taking it back within and really observing exactly what emotions are arising. And it's observing, it's very much linked to viewing it as a spectator and being able to kind of decipher what why that has happened, which we know EA is very much the basis of why you've gone through a certain experience, but it's allowing yourself to not fall into the the victimhood or why me attitude, but taking it back and going, okay, I've had this experience. What am I to learn from this? And it's not about trying just to overcome it and put a plaster over the wound, because that's not going to heal. That's not going to help you evolve. It's being able to let that wound open up. And if more needs to come through, we have to allow it to come through. And it's being able to figure out when we're doing enough or when we're doing too much.
Hmm.
And in the presentation in the conference, what I'm planning to do is to kind of present the differences between the fourth and 10th house. The fourth house being the emotional body, the egocentric identity that we create coming into this incarnation, and the 10th house being the ability to become the master of your emotions, to mature, to handle the emotions with maturity, and to take responsibility for whatever experiences you've gone through, because we have to understand that whatever lesson that we go through, what experience we go through, on a deeper soul level, we've asked to go through that.
So there must be this tension then between that fourth house and 10th house in terms of
Mm,
becoming mature, but
mm,
not so much that we then stifle the need to, like a child needs to be able to not think about the impact of their emotion. They just need to be able to emote. Then as we get
yeah,
older, we become more aware of all that. That's not appropriate. This is not appropriate. Or we internalize these beliefs and this shame. So how
yeah,
does one, and we all have this, how does one
mm,
unravel where I think maybe every human alive is dealing on some level with these judgment and the repression and sort of this discomfort or
mm,
fear of our emotions, or maybe like the
yeah.
not knowing, what do I do with it, how do I work with it in a helpful way?
Yeah, I've always said this, being a child and being able to express your emotions is great. The child can just, like, it wants to cry, it will cry. If it wants to rant, it will rant. But when you're an adult, oh no, you're not supposed to do that. Oh no, you shouldn't do that. That's not the right thing to do. It's being able to figure out, no, like, you could be having a conversation with somebody, and you're sitting there, and for all of a sudden you're like, I actually don't want to talk to you about whatever. Being able to have the conscious awareness and say, I'm not feeling great right now. For some reason, these emotions are coming up, and I don't want to react to you. So I'm going to take some time out. It's being consciously aware, but we live life more unconsciously, and we do, and that is part of the human experience. And it's being able to master those emotions. And I really feel the whole Capricorn, we've got Pluto transit in Capricorn. We've had it for a number of years. I think it was 2008 where it first transited into Capricorn, and we're at the latter part of that transit, once it goes direct post its retrograde phase right now. And I feel this particular time for every single human being on earth is a vital time, in order for us to figure out how we emotionally can handle how we can be responsible for our experiences, and handle the emotions that arise within us, rather than projections that we end up portraying to others, and etc.
So I'm hearing in that the square to Libra too. It's almost like to take responsibility for our emotions and almost parent ourselves. We need to have
Mm,
communication skills. We need to be able to
yeah,
overcome a lot of the conditioning around people pleasing or disappointing
yeah,
others, right? Or I guess on the other end of that, the Aries too, which is um, for some souls it might be, I can't just be inappropriate and do and say whatever I want to. I do have to learn how to become. So that cardinal, would you
cardinal
say that
square.
cardinal cross is almost like what it's like to be a human?
Yes, but
Yeah.
you use the key word there, Ari. It's reparenting yourself. It's the early childhood environment. If there have been displaced emotions, as an adult, we will project those back onto others. It's just how this emotional experience, this human experience works. But it's coming to the awareness of, they are displaced emotions, and how do I kind of work with healthy emotions, reparenting yourself, restructuring your reality. And yeah, you're right, that the opposition and the whole cardinal square, which I will briefly talk into at the conference, because it's all linked, is being able to take responsibility, master the emotions, know when to take action and not to take action,
Mm, mm,
and to understand that everybody around us is but a projection of ourselves. Ultimately we are one. We're ultimately, we've come from source, we're going to go back to source. And it's seeing life from that bigger perspective,
mm,
where we can start to have, I was going to say have fun, but to enjoy the experience, because it isn't going to be forever.
mm. beautiful. I mean, a question that comes up for me is almost just the delicate nature of how how does one learn and know what to do in any situation? Like what to say and what not to say, what to ask for, what to not ask for, when to emote, when not to emote. There's so much. If you just think about the moon
Mm,
and just the safety of a child, right? Um, to have an experience, and then as they grow, it feels like such a delicate and tender learning curve. How do I
mhm,
navigate this internal experience? And if evolution happens to the emotional body, then it must be absolutely necessary that I'm not repressing anything, right? That fundamentally I'm able to meet, but at the same time there
mm,
has to be some level of repression if you're out in public and whatever reasons, right? So will you
mm.
speak a little bit to that sort of this? I think maybe it's maybe it's a moon Cancer wisdom that we do. Like, how do we stay intimate with ourselves, functioning in the world, still growing, still feeling, still connecting with our inner space, but also still, still in the world and navigating when do we need to go within, when can we go more without, when can we be more extroverted, when do we need to be introverted, if we have to show up for a job. Like, these are such delicate questions that almost feels like if I look out in the world, um it can either be this extreme of, well, you need to get over yourself and just, move on,
Mm.
or the extreme of um, too much work, too much pressure, too much focus on what you're doing and in the world, and you're not really connecting with what's inside. And yeah, will you speak to this a little bit?
Ari, I'm still learning myself,
Yeah.
completely honestly. Like, we're gonna get triggered. We get triggered. We may be teaching this and we're trying to embody it ourselves, but we're also learning step by step as well. And ultimately, it all links to where, the way I've looked at it is, working with people's charts and stuff, figuring out exactly what's in that fourth house, what the ruler of that fourth house is, where the natal moon is, what aspects it makes, where Saturn is, where's Capricorn, it all interlinks. And it's having that tool as a basis, I think, is a great starting point. Unfortunately, I don't think, well, it's not that I don't think, I know we haven't been equipped with the way to handle our emotions. We haven't. Like my parents are wonderful parents, and they did their best they knew to do, with four kids. But if I look back in hindsight, there's a lot of stuff I'm like, they could have done that better, or they, etc., etc. But then it's going back into my story and looking at it from the lens of why did my soul need this experience, this family, this culture, these parents, etc. And then taking that and moving forward with that perspective, because the past is done, right? It has been written, it's the old chapter. We've come into this incarnation, which is this current chapter, and the future is that potential. It's a probable future. It's not fixed. We might have, the polarity point of Pluto shows us where our evolutionary direction is desiring to go. Whether we will get there in this incarnation is not guaranteed. Evolution takes lifetimes. So for here in the now, it's working with having, and the key word I'm going to keep coming back to is you have to be conscious, and there has to be a desire to want to learn
Mm,
it, to master those emotions. Some people don't. Some people love drama. Why do we watch TV? Why do we love all these dramas? Because people like to see exaggerated
uh,
lives and,
yeah.
fighting or whatever, etc. And it's coming back to your own story, and just in knowing that if you're doing the best and you're coming from an authentic place, whatever's happening around you will hopefully be a projection of your inner world,
Mm,
which for
mm,
majority of people it is. And if
mm,
anything arises that is in conflict to that, it's telling you, it's mirroring that back to yourself. Trust me, I'm going through this myself. I have the nodal axis right now squaring my moon in Capricorn. So this subject coming up, this whole topic, it's not a coincidence, not
it's
at all.
powerful and important perspective. And that is the
Yes.
heart of EA, taking full responsibility for our experience. And
Yeah.
I've heard you repeat two important pieces, which is the ability to ultimately objectify the why. Maybe
Mm.
um and let me ask you something about that, because there must be this point where we can't do that. I mean, that's that deeper psychological self-awareness, but accessing that level of self-awareness itself must only be possible once we've sort of allowed ourselves to be sort of uncomfortable first, right? Like there has to be
Yes. Yes.
um this
You have to,
yeah.
I know what you're trying to say. It's, we've all gone through, like I said, we've gone through heartbreak, right? We've been there. My journey to EA was from the perspective of why is this happening to me? And it was from a relationship that I had different expectations from, and it didn't happen. It was from a health suddenly going a bit crazy and being made redundant from a job, and it all happened at once. And I remember thinking, why? And it was painful. The whole three things were painful. And you want to kind of not experience that pain because you're just like, let me just fix this quick.
Right.
But that's not how it works. And if I hadn't gone through that difficult time, that painful time in my life, I wouldn't have taken that time out to kind of go within. It's that evolution and involution that happens.
Mm,
And I needed that involution time to figure out exactly where I was. And to be honest, for EA to walk into my life, and it did. That's exactly how I came across evolutionary astrology. I went seeking for answers. And I remember and I had no knowledge of astrology. I knew of astrology, the star signs and houses, etc. But did I know a quincux from a semi-sextile? No, I had no idea what all that meant. And I remember reading Pluto Volume 1. It just made sense. It
mm,
just made sense. Volume 2 nailed it for me.
mm,
That's when I went, I need to have a reading. And I reached out to Deva, and Deva gave me a reading. And I still have those notes from that reading. God,
mm.
I was about 12, 13 years ago now.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, and there's some stuff she said in that reading that's still coming, that still hasn't transpired yet from what she said to me. And I had no desire at that point to be an evolutionary astrologer, but I desired to learn the material. I want to learn this for myself. And it was only a few years into it where I was like, I've always wanted to coach, and I was coaching a little bit here and there before. This tool is amazing. This tool needs to be more out there. And it was only once I got into EA, I realized how big it is in America. And even in England, actually, people are aware of it. There's, some evolutionary astrologers that have come through from this part of the world. And it was like, and it was fun learning it, deep but fun, meaning I enjoyed it. Every book I picked up, it was, I've reread Pluto Volume 1 and 2 a lot of times, and you pick up something new, different each time you read it. And it's been able to it's been able to appreciate, if evolution is what you're seeking, that evolution in terms of the soul's evolution, we have to go through those dark nights of the soul
Mm,
in order to step into our power. And to be honest, for the universe to kind of meet us in that give or take energy.
mm. Something I think a lot of people often get confused about so I know
Mhm.
you're talking about the fourth house, 10th house axis. When thinking about the moon in general,
Mhm.
a question that I think comes up often is like, okay, how does an Aquarius moon process their, like, how does Gemini moon feel their emotions if it's an inherently intellectual archetype? Um, will you speak to that? Just like give an example of a couple different moon signatures and how integration happens, how emotional integration happens in a way that
Mm.
isn't. I think every moon will have its own way of
Mm.
both bypassing or ignoring or not really integrating, but then will also
Yeah.
have its way of integrating. And by the way, thank you for sharing your story too and your journey with EA. Appreciate hearing that.
Well, so it's looking at, so Gemini moon, we will always look at, Gemini archetype. first and foremost. Moon, we know, is the emotional nature and how we emotionally relate to life. And so Gemini moon it's like you said, it's an air sign, but it's intellectual. So it'll be very much about learning. That person, the Gemini moon will want to learn a lot of things, will be diverse in learning in different materials or whatever it's drawn to. And it'll be that emotional pull because the moon is where we will emotionally relate to. So it'll be very inquisitive, it'll be very quick. It may actually even get bored. And once it's learned something, halfway through, right, I'm done, next. So it's very much we'll be going through all the different types of stuff it wants to learn. But when you say it's an air sign, yes, it's an air sign, but that's how it relates to life through that element, through that quality. An example I can give you is my own Capricorn moon. I used to get told when I was younger, not so much now, thank God. You can come across cold. And I used to be like, I'm not cold, I'm quite fun, jovial. But that's when you get to know the person. So a Capricorn moon is just, I took my time with my emotions. If
Mm,
something happened around me, I did react at times quite instinctively because I have my Mars in Cancer. So if something really hit an emotional chord, that's when I would react quite instinctively. But my Capricorn moon, emotionally, I just needed to figure out what was happening in a lot of ways. And I actually, to this day, I take pride and I'm quite responsible with my emotions. But it's only to those people that are very close to me, you know. My twin sister probably being the one of the closest that will see the opposite of that Capricorn moon, which is the vulnerability and which is if I need to be emotional, I will be emotional.
mm,
But
mm,
that kind of protection I have created, but that's what I need in order to figure my reality out.
mm.
Ari, what's your moon? I can't
Scorpio.
remember. It's gone up straight on my
Scorpio.
head. What? Virgo.
Scorpio.
Oh, Scorpio. Okay. It's funny. I say to a lot of people, Scorpio moons, eh? Intense.
Yeah.
um, But yeah, no, but with yourself, you
Yeah.
have a deep psychological, emotional nature.
Yeah.
Every emotional experience you most likely go through will be from those lens. And this is
Yeah.
just general. We're not linking it to any planets or aspects, but through knowing what your moon sign is, I say this to a lot of people. People read their star signs and sun signs, and that's great. I'm like, try reading your moon sign. You will understand a deeper part of who you are, your emotional nature, because you relate to life emotionally. We don't react to life from a surface level. We don't. Even if we think we do, we don't. It's always from that unconscious emotional level to anything, you know? So it's understanding that the emotions are an integral and key part of our human experience. Even when we're born, Ari, you think about it, the water trinity, Pisces being a part of that water trinity. Aries is when we're born, well, first house,
Sure.
physical, come into the world. We've come from source, for energy, and the fourth house being the womb experience. So we are always going to be emotionally reacting to everything. And
Mm.
it's being having that awareness.
Okay, so here's what I'm hearing. So it's our fundamental way of being, how we're going to orient an emotionally integrated
Mm,
experience. And the thing that I love really tuning into more deeply is just like the pitfalls and the traps, right? So like for me,
mm.
Scorpio Moon, what would it look like not to emotionally integrate? Well, to kind of get
Oh,
stuck,
geez.
right? To get stuck in a sort of a broodiness or obsession or strong.
Yeah.
But the trick, right, with a Scorpio Moon in general would be to actually connect with it. There's
Yes.
psychological self-awareness underneath it, but there needs to be almost like a willingness to meet that edge of profound discomfort or distrust or fear
Yeah.
that comes often with the Scorpio archetype. So it's sort of like Moon Scorpio needs to face the edge of exactly where they're not willing to let go in order to go somewhere deeper. moon in Gemini would be that would be more getting out of, since there's a growth through learning and accessing
Mm,
information, this would be bringing the mind inward, being able to
yeah.
identify and orient the mind towards the emotional body. Okay, this is
Yes.
what I'm feeling, this is this thing, and being able to move away from the reactive mind, which is the Gemini,
Yeah.
into more of a, you know what's interesting about Gemini?
Intuitive. Mm,
it it's identifying through the senses. Like we hear things, we smell things, we look at things, and then we give it a name. So the key
yeah.
would be to not let the mind and the labeling and the classifications get too strong, where we then aren't able to just have the experience of something.
Experience.
And then
The
it's like
intuitive.
the intuitive comes together because all we
Yeah.
feel it, and then the mind isn't getting in the way
Yeah.
of all of the feeling. And then there's
Yeah.
like understanding, there's clarity, but it can almost be like disjointed and reactive, but not quite integrated before there's a real emotional integration. And then what you're saying about Capricorn Moon is implicit to that would be time. There
Mm.
needs to
Oh,
be
yes.
time, and there was like a container or a boundary created so that there's a sense of safety to actually process and feel and actually go into what's really going on, as opposed to maybe being overly identified with conditioned responses or who I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be. So that that sense of retreating and taking time to connect with.
Yeah.
So the other term that you've used a lot, which to me is a Capricorn word, is emotional mastery,
Yeah.
right? But I can see that's implicit to all lunar signatures in their own
Mm.
modality. But
Yeah.
that Capricorn moon would be lear- learning how to, almost like becoming more masterful at navigating the emotional realm, um,
Hmm.
and standing in that, so almost like an emotional adulthood, the ability to
Yes.
reconnect with that without the repression, and progressively with less and less of a need to kind of like put up the boundary and repress, and then go into that place where it's like and that's like the reparenting that we often hear about
Yeah.
with that Capricorn Cancer axis.
Yeah.
The moon in
But
Capricorn
it's all,
really speak to that.
yes, and it's actually looking at that lens from, to heal the inner child, it's the adult self that heals that
Mm-hmm.
inner child,
Mm-hmm.
not the inner child healing the inner child.
Yeah, that's such a
So
key
it's,
point. Yeah, yeah. That's a
yeah,
good one.
yes,
It's a good one.
yeah.
So when the inner child tries to heal it, it's chaos.
Mm,
So that adult will know, okay, right now we need to take some time because this is too much. So we're going to be
yeah,
alone, or we're going to be with a safe person, or we're going to create this environment. That's such wisdom.
mm,
That's compassion too, right? It's like
yeah,
this infinite soul being,
yeah.
knowing how to embrace this very moon is limitation from a certain point of view, in the sense that like we're not going to get any further than what we can emotionally integrate. It's not
Yes,
limitation
yes,
from a Saturn perspective. It's just like we can't be this wide open, infinite Piscean, a Neptunian, open to all things, because we actually are processing experience, and we need to learn how to navigate that with a sort of self leadership.
this is why we have a natal moon in a particular planet, then your progressed moon, which I feel is
Mm,
also very important to see where it is, which will tell you where you are right now in your life, which
okay.
helps to integrate your natal moon. And then, of course, the lunar nodes, which are moving, the transit lunar nodes that links to the transiting moon, which moves, constantly
Mm.
every um every couple of days. Like right now, Ari, you talk about the Scorpion moon. Right now, the moon is in
It's a
Scorpio.
Scorpio. There we
So we're
go.
having this deep conversation, and
Yeah,
you're asking me very
it's in my
deep
third house
questions.
too.
Yeah.
Third
Your
house. Yeah.
questions are very deep, and I've gone, this is a whole, you've asked me questions where we could do six separate talks,
Yeah, yeah,
which is,
yeah.
but Ari, my third house is ruled by Scorpio.
There we go.
So there we go.
Beautiful. There we
We're
go.
having this conversation, deep
There we
conversation.
go. This is great. This is great. This is, I mean, so like what I hope what everyone's feeling from this is just how rich the moon is, and
Mm.
thus also the lunar archetype as a whole, fourth house,
Yeah.
10th house. And so, you're going to be delving into that during this conference, and you've had a lot of your own learning and experience and deep inner soul studies and EA studies. So I'm looking forward to what you have to share. Um, so
I'm
once
looking
again,
forward to being there, Ari.
yeah,
Honestly, I think the last one was 2012,
yeah, the last live one was 2012. Yeah,
2012,
in
and I
Oregon.
had just gotten into this work, so
Okay.
it feels a little bit like it's nice to be a part of the community and kind of interact with everybody. And I'm very honored to be able to do this. So just thanking everybody for giving me the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of it. Okay, yeah, thank you, Rav. And once again, please join us. You could also, by the way, purchase individual classes. So if you don't want to do the whole thing, but this one draws to you, you can also do that. But I think you'll find many fascinating and relevant talks. Check it out on the website in the description below. And thank you for watching. Hope to see you all there.